Hello guys, welcome to Testing Advices. In previous video, we have learned about creating and centralizing methods and use them in different step definition classes. Now in this video, we will learn about page objects. So this can also be achieved by page object pattern or page factory pattern, but it is a complex process. So there is a better way to overcome page object modeling complications. Okay. So let's see how practically we can implement this. So in this source main Java, under this com testing advices package, let's create an extended package page objects. Now within this package, we will go and create a new class called hidden page objects. Now what we are going to do, the XPath, okay, whatever the XPath IDs that we are identified or located, we will try to create, okay, the variables, declaring it as a final in this particular objects class, okay, and then we will call those variables inside this step definition file. Okay, so the first, as we are using different step definition classes, okay, so also for the URL we'll do that particular process. Okay, so the first thing is this URL. So let me copy this, and in hidden page objects, okay, the first variable which we are going to declare is public final string, and that is nothing but the URL. Okay. The same way we need to define other variables as well. Okay. So the second is user click on multi-city button. So in this we have this one XPath. Okay, so copy, and it is nothing but driver clicking on the multi-city button. Okay, so instead of URL we'll define it as multi-city button. Then the next is user enters LON in the field. Okay, so first it is confirming, okay, this multi-city form field, okay, is being displayed. Okay, so once you click on the button, there is a from field that enables. So first we need to go and identify that particular row. So we will define it as multi-city row is equal to, and within this we'll paste that particular XPath. Save. Now the last one is it, what it exactly does, it identifies that field and it enters the input. Okay, so copy paste this, and it is nothing but multi-city from field, right? Now what we need to do, now if we want to access these defined variables, then what we need to do, we need to create the object of this class. So here we'll create the objects, and I'll name it as hidden is equal to new, and this is nothing but the constructor. Okay. So now let's import. So we have imported the class. Now we'll try to replace this URL with the variable defined variable. So hidden, call the object dot, and then it will show, yes, so it's showing us the defined variables in the suggestion box. So in the same way we need to replace hidden dot multicity button, and here we are going to use hidden dot multicity row. There it is. And here the from field, where it is actually going to enter this LON text. Okay. So we are done, and for the hidden features we are using this tag. So let me copy and paste in the main runner. Okay, so it is not copied. Save, and now let's run this main runner. Yes, so the test case is passed, and as you can see it has entered the LON in the from field. So the advantage of creating this page objects is basically on website, if any XPath is changes, okay, so we can straight away jump into this class and we can simply change the XPath here. Okay, so that will reduce our effort. So if we are using this any of this particular variable multiple times, so we don't need to go and change that into this step definition. Instead we can simply come to this page object and we can change that. Okay, so you will see more use of this when we actually going to use the login steps. Okay, because there we are entering the inputs like username and password multiple times, so one for the valid one and one for the invalid one. So if tomorrow if any XPath or anything changes from this particular steps, okay, so we are going to use a common variable in most of the cases. So there we will have the advantage of this particular thing. So let's look into it. So in the similar fashion, what we'll do, we'll also create the page objects for login page objects. In a similar way, we'll start defining the variables as a final, and the first one is the URL. So if we launch this login steps, okay, so here we are going to enter the URL. So let me remove this blog. Okay. So after this, what we are doing, we are going to click on the login link, okay, which is in the header. So public final string login link. Make sure whenever you are defining this variable, okay, so its name should resemble what exactly we are trying to do. Okay, so the functionality and the name should match. Then what we are doing, we are trying to enter the name in the username field. So let me copy this, as we are going to require a lot of variables. So the next thing is username. So login username. Okay, and within this we'll enter the byname wala function. Okay, so that is nothing but user underscore login. Now the next thing is, password. Okay, so copy this ID, login, password. Then we are clicking on this login button. Login button. Then what we are doing, waiting for visibility of element located link test logout. Okay, so once we click on the login link, it will successfully redirect to the desired page, and in the header we are going to verify this logout link. So I'll define it as logout link. Then this is the scenario for login with valid credentials, and the next scenario we have is login with invalid credential. Okay, so the initial steps are common. Okay, but the only difference is we are trying to enter the invalid password. Okay, so if you look into the earlier method, okay, or the test steps, so if you see, we have identified this using ID, and here if you go and check again, we are using that same ID. Okay, so we have already defined that. Okay, so we don't need to go and define that variable again, we can use the same variable again. Now here we are trying to verify the error message. Okay, so let's create to verify the error message. Okay, so this is nothing but verifying error message, right? So public final string, and this is nothing but invalid login error message. So copy this, now if we again go back to this hidden steps. Okay, so the only thing for which we haven't defined the variable is this send key text. But now if we go to this login steps class, okay, so in the case of valid, we are trying to enter the username, we are trying to enter this username, we are trying to enter this password for valid case, and as well as for this invalid case. Okay, so again we can use this function to minimize our coding efforts. What we will do, the below variables will define for the send keys. So copy this initial declaration. The first variable which we are going to define is login username value. So guys, for your simplicity, you can modify this particular framework as much as you want. Okay, so there is no restriction. Then the next thing which we will do is login password value. In the case of invalid, again it will remain the username will remain the same, and for password the only thing we will add is this is an invalid case, right? So invalid password value, that's it, and we'll change that value. So now let's create an object of this login page objects to access these variables. Login is equal to new login page objects. Import the class. Okay, so we have imported the class. Now let's start replacing the variables. Login dot URL login dot login link so this is nothing but the login link in the header. We are going to click, then here we are going to access the username field. So login dot login username, and then within that username field we are going to enter the username value. So login username value. Then in the similar way we are going to identify the password field. So login dot login password, login dot login password value. So this is for the valid case. Then we are going to click on the login button. So login dot login button. After that we are going to verify the logout text is displayed. So login dot logout link, and the same element we are using here as well. So let me replace that. Now the next case is for invalid one, but again we have defined the same variable login dot login password, login dot login invalid. Okay, so in this case we have defined this invalid password value, and at last we are going to verify the error message. Okay. So login dot invalid login error message. Now we use this in all below code to replace the XPath everywhere. So guys, if you observe, initially we have written like this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then these 6 steps, and for these 6 steps we have replaced the code with only these 3 steps. Okay, so this is the advantage of designing the framework as much as possible. Okay, it will reduce the coding efforts as well as it will simplify if we are going to update anything in this particular framework. Now what we are going to do, let's try to replace okay this. Now we'll run this case for valid login. So it has entered the valid credential. Now it will verify the logout link and the browser will be closed. That's it. So as you can see, it has entered valid username, it has entered valid password, login. So it has successfully executed the feature which we have asked in the main runner. Okay. So guys, this is a fairly simple approach to achieve the page objects method. Okay. Now to summarize this phase, what we have done, that we'll try to just figure out. So first, we have created this constant class for global elements of the project in this constant class, right? Then we have created a class to set up the browser instance with the help of hooks. So that is nothing but this base steps. Okay. Then what we have done, then we have created a WebDriver actions class, okay, in which we have centralized this method with a use for all these particular step files. At last, what we have created, this page object modeling. Okay. So at the start of the video, I told you guys about the page object pattern and page factory pattern. So in future, I will try to create a video explaining that particular concept so that you guys will understand the difference between that approach and the approach we are using in our framework. Okay. Now what you guys can do is, I have created this WebDriver actions class and centralized the method. So there are still some feature files are remaining. So you guys can go for that and create a centralized method for those step definitions for which we haven't created the common methods. And in the same way, you need to create this page object modeling and try to and see if it is getting executed by assigning the appropriate tags. Okay. So in the next phase, we will further continue with our advanced framework part. Thanks for watching the video.